One reaction with Levy. Welcome to the third episode of the Up Next Network podcast. Matthew Levy alongside Oliver Schaack. Lots of news this week. Let me send it over to Oliver to cover the big one. 12.
Oh my goodness, the Pac-12 is in trouble. So we saw Washington and Oregon go over to the Big Ten, and then we saw Colorado, I believe like a week or week and a half ago, Arizona State, and Utah, two-time defending champion in the Pac-12, go to the Big 12. Matthew, first off, do you think this is good for the sport? Do you think the mega conferences are good for the sport overall? Do you see that it's going to lead to problems? And if you're the Pac-12, what do you do?
Well, first off, the Pac-12 is done. I mean, we've seen basically all these teams leave. Stanford and Cal now rumored to go to the ACC. It's just not a good situation, no matter how you dice it or slice it. I will say, taking the pro side of why this is good for the sport, I think it's good for the fans. As a Big Ten fan, as a Michigan fan, now I get to see this team in an expanded playoff, so there's not as much pressure, but they get to play more big games. They get to play Oregon, they get to play Washington, USC, UCLA, Big 12. You get to see Colorado with Deion Sanders go play TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma State. That's the third best conference. And now you're getting bigger games in each conference. I think that's the biggest thing. And fans are going to have more fun. They get to travel a little bit more. Football drives the money. And to me, this is going to make more money for each athletic program, which will help fund the costs of traveling.
My only reservation with all this is I really worry for the student athletes that aren't football players, that aren't men's basketball players, that aren't women's basketball players, those big sports that get the, private flights everywhere they go, that get all of the luxuries of being the teams that bring in the revenue. My worry is, what about the student athletes that are cross-country runners and you're, say, at Washington and you got to go all the way to Rutgers and then all the way back to home and then you're in at 4 a.m. and then you got class the next day. I worry about, I don't want to say the sanity of these student athletes at the lower level sports, but just like their mental health in general. I mean, they're basically going to be professional athletes at this point with all of the travel they're going to have to go through. You said it the best way possible. It's the money, it's the revenue. Football drives everything. That's why this works. I hope it gets to a point where they can find a way, scheduling wise, to not put so much pressure on these student athletes to where they have to be able to manage everything else that comes with being a student athlete. I hope they can respect that they're people at the end of the day. But I'm excited as far as the competition side of things. I love the fact that USC and Ohio State could play football one every 2 years, or even back-to-back years, or UCLA and Michigan, or Oregon and Penn State. Like, I think it's fantastic from that side. I just really hope they look out for the student athletes.
Well, I think this is just the way it's just moving, and that's just a reality of the situation, which kind of stinks. But I would say athletic departments are going to have more money to fund the traveling expenses. And I think the schedules will be designed in these other sports to basically have Oregon kind of play Washington, USC, UCLA a little bit more than they're playing Rutgers. And I think you'll see that. And I think that'll be factored in. But I think in terms of the overall big picture, it's better for the fans. It'll drive more money so that those travel expenses and costs will be covered by that athletic department because they're making more money from TV deals and that stuff. So overall, I'm a fan from a fan perspective.
And I hope you're right? I hope this all works out because from a competition side, excitement, the fan side, it's fantastic. Now, a quick little nugget I wanted to throw in: divisions. That's something that people thought should be out the window before realignment. I said it I think on the first episode, I said we should not have divisions. But do you see a world now with a lot of West Coast teams going to the Big Ten? Or do you see divisions being a good thing? Or do you think it should just be no divisions? Everyone just battles it out.
Well, they've come out and they've said it's probably going to be pods. So you're going to have a pod of probably USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, maybe a couple other teams towards the west side of the coast. And then you're going to have a pod of the Rutgers and Penn States and the teams on the East Coast. And I think they'll rotate those opponents every year. But I think every year, the USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, they're going to play each other, which will limit those travel expenses. And I think in every sport that will occur.
And that would be a really good idea, right? To keep those rivalries from the Pac-12 intertwined. I agree. If they can do that pod scenario, keep those pods based on region, I think that could be really, really cool. As far as the Big 12, you touched on it. Both Arizona schools, Utah and Colorado. Do you think the Big 12 has done enough? Do you think, because obviously I think the SEC, Big 10 are up here, Big 12 a little bit lower as far as football, overall football talent, and as far as the programs go. Do you think the Big 12 has done enough to stay relevant?
Well, I think they have compared to like the ACC. And the Big 12 here has negotiated a TV deal and gotten these teams really to set themselves as to be that third league. And you know what? That third league's still going to get a college football playoff bid. That third league in football might be the best league in basketball. Look at the basketball teams. Kansas, you're getting Arizona. You're getting some really good basketball teams there too. And they're probably the best basketball conference in the country. So they've positioned themselves very well, and they're trying to go after UConn now, and that's the vision. But I think the Big 12 leadership has been far and away above the ACC leadership, and of course the Pac-12 leadership. They have less, but they've done a lot more with it, and they've adapted really well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think from a basketball side, they're clear cut the best conference in the country now. And they have so many good programs, so many up and coming programs. I think it would be great for them. I think they've always been a basketball first conference. I think that's always kind of been how they run things. Now, if you're the ACC, you see Florida State, they want out. And kind of out of nowhere, really, when you look at where they've been, and they kind of had their first good year in, 5 or 6 years. Florida State's back on the map. Heisman contender, possibly in their starting quarterback. Coach Norvell has done a great job there at Florida State in his limited time. Do you like the idea of the ACC, and where do you think they should go? And what do you think the ACC should do?
Well, I think Florida State's just speaking honestly, and they're saying, "Hey, ACC, look at what the Big 12's doing. They're adapting. We're not here in the ACC, and they feel they're one of the best brands and probably best teams in that conference across all sports. That's probably true, right? That's probably true, especially where they're projected to, in college football. It is, and they're saying, "Hey, we're making $30 million less than the Big 10, Big 12, and the SEC. We're making that much less. Why aren't we doing anything about it?" And it makes sense for them to say it because right now there are three leagues that have far and away put themselves on the map. It is the SEC, Big 12, and Big 10. What
Yep.
has the ACC done to change anything? What if Florida State bolts? And they're thinking, we're holding this conference together. It's us, it's Miami, it's Clemson, right? And North Carolina and Duke of basketball. That's what's keeping this conference together. So we should have a say in saying we need to either expand or maybe it's time to think of joining one of those three conferences to make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly interesting. It's changed the landscape of college sports. And one thing that I think people need to look out for, there's one team out there that's not in a conference. They never have been, but with how things are going, I think Notre Dame's a team that people need to keep a close eye and see what they do because they have that contract deal with NBC, right? But they're not in a conference. I don't know if that works in this new landscape, in this new realignment. I don't know if will that affect them if they're an 11-1 team, SC's an 11-1 team. They won the Big Ten. They haven't won anything. Is that going to affect them if they're battling out for a college football playoff spot? Obviously, 12 teams coming soon, but hypothetically, or if they're 11-2, whatever. Case point, it's going to be super interesting to see how that goes. I'm excited regardless for college football in what seems to be the last year of normalcy in the sport, but nevertheless, it's going to be interesting. And along with that, we have the NFL coming up, just had the Hall of Fame game. Matthew, take it away.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. It's the storylines are picking up. Let's start here because the training camp's so interesting, right? Because I scroll through Twitter and I see all these reports and everyone's great. Everyone's doing well. It's the hype train of hype dreams for every single player.
Yep.
And this is the most confident a fan base is going to be. August 7th, right before the preseason games,
Oh,
right
being
before the
0-0
injuries.
is a beautiful thing. Being
It's
0-0 is a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. So, Oliver, I'm going to tee this up for you. Give
Yeah.
me a team, right? The hype train is coming along right now. The hype train's coming. What's a team that's going to disappoint?
So this is not a team that I think anyone's saying, oh, they're going to the Super Bowl. But the amount of hype that we're getting from fans and those around the Chicago Bears, it's kind of unbelievable. Now, I'm a big Justin Fields believer. I think he's going to continue to progress. But you do have to realize he's 5-20 in his first 25 career starts. Even though he's had rough rosters around him, 5-20. That is a very, very bad record to have in your first 2 years in the league. I do think they did a great job. Ryan Poles, their GM, he's done a great job getting pieces. I think getting DJ Moore was really good. They got, first of all, that haul they got for the number one pick was impressive. I think that was really, really well done by Ryan Poles. They got Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, the left tackle. He'll most likely be the left tackle his rookie year. They just got Yannick Ngakoue. They just signed him a few days ago. I believe the day of the Hall of Fame game to a 1-year deal, and he's a great presence to have on the defensive side of the ball. So I think the Bears have a lot of good things going for them, but to say they're going to be a sleeper team or a surprise team, that's a stretch, especially in their division. The Lions are clear-cut a better team. The Minnesota Vikings are a clear-cut better team. I would argue, and this is not my bias, I would argue the Green Bay Packers are a clear-cut better team. So just in that division alone, you're the last place team. And that's not even really the upper echelon NFC teams. The NFC East is loaded. You have San Francisco out west. Seattle's out west. I think they're another team that can make a playoff run. I don't see the Bears making a big impact this year.
I'll push back on you just for a second. I do think the Bears are probably a year away, but I think the talent of Justin Fields, if you look at the rest of the quarterbacks in that division, Jordan Love, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff. Justin Fields can easily be the best quarterback in that division this season. That's worth something. Jordan Love's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing, right? Jared Goff, yes, he went to a Super Bowl, but him and Kirk Cousins don't have the playmaking ability that Justin Fields can have. And you saw their offense getting better and better. He's going to get weapons now. The NFC is not loaded, or at least the NFC North is not loaded like the AFC. He doesn't need to be a Trevor Lawrence. He just needs to be a playmaker, and I think he can easily do that in the NFC North.
So I would say he has the most raw talent of anyone in the NFC North. I think that's without question. He's by far the most athletic quarterback in the division. I don't think that's even debatable. He's probably, outside of Lamar, he's probably the most athletic quarterback in the NFL. I think that's a coin flip because they're both just freaks of natures in their own rights, right? But the thing that Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins have, they have, even though you're right, they made deep playoff runs with the exception of Goff's Super Bowl run with the Rams a few years ago. They are proven veterans. They are proven guys. And it's one thing to have that talent that Justin Fields has, but to apply it into a successful offense, to have the intangible, the leadership aspects. Say what you want about Kirk Cousins. That dude's a hell of a leader. If you saw the quarterback documentary on Netflix, he's a great leader. So those are the things Fields needs to continue to progress. It's one thing to be the most talented. If you want to give Fields that, I don't think that's out of reach. I mean, athletically, yes. And talent-wise, he was incredible out of Ohio State. He's still an incredible talent. But I think it's another thing when you look at guys who repeatedly had success, especially in the regular season. I know it's not the grand scheme, but that's what you need to do to make the playoffs. And Goff finally seems to be comfortable in Detroit. He had a great year last year. He was one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC. If you look at it, he really was. And Kirk Cousins has done it repeatedly with Minnesota. So I think the Bears are still a little while away. And hopefully, Justin Fields proves me wrong. Also, Jordan Love, please God. But Justin Fields, I hope, proves me wrong.
All right. That's fair. Well, we will see that coming along. I think that's
prove me wrong, please. Justin Fields, prove me wrong.
We will see. Give me a team that's really going to surprise you here, because there's a lot of teams that got the hype train going, but what's a team that's actually going to take care of that and actually be that hype team heading into 2024 or 2023?
Right, for sure. So this is not a team. I think they're not a division winner because I think there are two teams above them. But as far as being one of those really good wildcard teams, I really like the Cleveland Browns. I think they can be a team that they're kind of forgetting that Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson. And if he's back to, I don't know if he'll be, the MVP Deshaun Watson that he once was, or close to it, because he never won it, but close to it. But he can still, if he's 75 or 80% of that, that's still a great quarterback in the NFL. You have arguably the best running back in the league in Nick Chubb. I think it's between him and CMC. Easily one of the best offensive lines in football. Multiple guys on that front that are Pro Bowl guys, all pro guys. Fantastic. I think getting weapons in the NFL draft was big. They have Amari Cooper there. They got Cedric Williams out of Tennessee. He was fantastic. He was opposite of Jalen Hyatt on that offense that was probably the best in America last year out of Tennessee in the SEC. And they have stars on defense. They have Denzel Ward. He's a fantastic defensive back. Myles Garrett could be the best defensive end in the game. And he's a freak of nature. And Kevin Stefanski's a fantastic coach. I think he's the right guy for the job. I think he's shown that he can bring Cleveland to that level. And I think Cleveland could definitely be a team that if you have to face them in the wild card or play them in Cleveland in the wild card, that's a team that could make a run to the divisional round and anything can happen at that point.
I agree. They got great lines. And Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman. Good Lord.
On Tennessee. He was great, and I think he was opposite Jalen Hyatt, who was also great. But it's going to be a tough transition for both of them just because of the way Heupel runs his stuff at Tennessee. But I will say, great offensive line, great defensive line. They got Zadarius Smith, they got Dalvin Tomlinson out the run defense, which was atrocious last year. So we'll see if they can improve that.
Really bad.
But but I definitely see it's a very tough division.
Yeah.
But if they can get in, that is a scary team to me if Deshaun Watson can get back to full strength. All right, let's move on. Let's end off with this. I'm gonna make you look bad here, Oliver. We're a week after the trade deadline in the MLB, and the call of the Angels buying, not looking so good. They just
Not at
got
all. No,
swept
I
by the
will take it. I'm
Mariners.
taking it on the chin. This is bad.
They just got swept by the Mariners. I don't think they've won a game since the trade deadline. What do they do from here?
I mean, it's just sad because it makes sense for them to get guys. They had a top 10 offense. They're not going to get a haul back that they like for Shohei anyways, let alone actually do it. You know how their owner is. You know how their GM is. They were going to try to keep Ohtani anyway. And then just all the other teams just decided to buy. The Cubs just decided to buy. That was the team I thought that would sell. I'm wrong on that too. They've been playing great since the deadline. They got a few pieces. I think Candelario was a sneaky acquisition from the Nationals, the third baseman. He's had a great year and has been really good with them in Chicago since he got traded to them. And they didn't really get that upper echelon starting pitcher. I think Giolito's a great talent, former first rounder, high school standout. He always had great stuff, multi-time All-Star, but he's not the same that he once was. I think Ronaldo Lopez, though, I think that he's really good. I like that in their back end of the pen, but they have just got to wake up. They have a great lineup. They're top 10 in baseball as far as offensive production. The starting pitching has to wake up. I can't just be Shohei, and he can do so much, but he can't be worth 9 players. He's worth 2, a starting pitcher and a great batter. But that's it. He can't be your great catcher. He can't be your great shortstop. He can't be your great first baseman. He can't be a great defensive outfielder. He can only do so much. Guys have to step up. And you're right. I mean, I'm just shocked. I thought the Angels would do better. They still have time to make a run. It's going to be very hard, though, to keep up with those teams. I don't see it happening.
No. They're 7 games back.
I don't see it happening.
They're behind 4 teams. They're absolutely done. Shohei's gone. I think we just take the
It's just sad, man. I don't understand it. I don't know if it's just an Angels jinx. It made sense for them to buy. I don't regret saying they should have bought. At that point, I stand with that. They just are bad. They are just making me look bad. I'm less of an Angels fan than I already was. And I don't know, man. It's just sad to watch.
It is. And the Cubs thing, you already went into it, but the Cubs, they're looking strong, and that is fun. That ballpark looks amazing to go to. Let's move here with the Astros. The one thing you were right on, you said the Astros, they had to go get a big player, right? There's too much talent in the AL, and they got Justin Verlander. And even in the loss against the Yankees this weekend, you could tell he just fortifies that rotation with Framber Valdez, your Quiddity coming back. Justin Verlander really puts the Astros on the map here.
Yeah.
And right now, I think they're probably the favorite right now in the AL, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, you have the World Series leadership back. I mean, you still had Altuve, Bregman, Framber, and all that, but having Verlander be back, that's a guy who's a lock for Cooperstown. That's a very nice thing to have. Even if he's not your game, you can go Framber game 1. I personally don't mind that because he's been one of the 5 best pitchers in the game this entire year. So if you were to go him game 1, fine. But I mean, I think it's hard to say, hey, Justin, take a seat. You're not playing game 1. You're starting Justin Verlander game 1, in my opinion. I don't care if Framber wins the Cy Young. That being said, I think the AL is still tough. I don't think it's a cakewalk for the Astros by any standard. I still think the Texas Rangers are a force to be reckoned with because they have the best offense in the American League, and they got Max Scherzer, who he hasn't been the Max Scherzer we all know and love this year, but still to add that into that great starting rotation, I think that's big. I think the Baltimore Orioles, I still don't understand how they're so young and so dominant. I think they're a team that for the next decade is going to be a huge problem. And they have a fantastic bullpen, by the way. Mount Fuji, kid from the A's, who came over from Japan, then got traded over. Did you see him the other day? Registered Bucko 3. Dude was shoving. He didn't throw a fastball lower than 100. He sat 100 to 103, made the Mets look stupid. It was unbelievable. I love it. So if he's your third best relief pitcher, behind obviously Felix Bautista and Cano, you're looking good. And that is remnants of that 3-headed monster from the Royals in the mid 2010s. But he needs to continue this. And I mean, the Rays are scuffling, but if they can get in, they're a feisty team. I would hate to see them if I was in the playoffs because the Rays just find a way, man. It's their way. So I think the Astros gave themselves a fantastic chance. And yeah, I mean, the AL is going to be so fun this year in the playoffs.
It is. It is. And hopefully the Yankees will get in, but it's not looking likely at the moment. But that's it for today. Up Next Network podcast, episode number 3. For
There you
Oliver
go.
Schaack, Matthew Levy, so long and have a good night.